Welcome to your D130 History of Graphic Design, to our hands-on exercise of recreating the Burger King logo, the old school version. And we're going to do that in Figma. And this is actually the second time I'm recording this video. I did it last week, early in the week, and it got messed up with some video anomalies and some kind of delays in audio. And I didn't want to confuse anybody if you're new to Figma, so I'm recording it again. That's why I have a finished version here, and I'll do it again from scratch. Maybe it'll be good to kind of go over some things. But your finished product is going to kind of look like this. Now, actually, it's going to start like this, and it's going to have a full color old school Burger King logo down here and a larger one that you're going to trace over that's kind of grayed out, or the opacity is turned down. And what you're going to do is you're going to create a bun there, and you're going to create a bottom bun, and then you're going to create burger, and then you're going to create king. And we're going to match that as close as we can. It won't be perfect. You can see it's not exactly the same. The G is a little bit different. But we're going to kind of match that, and we're going to learn to use some vector tools, meaning creating paths, altering paths, running some Boolean operations, meaning chopping a circle in half and stuff like that to get these shapes. So it may be new to you, so take your time with it, and don't feel like it has to be perfect. If you struggle, let me know. Especially if you're new to working in Figma. So I'll try to go over this as slow as I can. And if you've worked with Figma, you should be able to crank through this fairly quickly. But there's some little things you got to watch out for. Holding the escape key and holding the option key or the alt key to copy something, and using shift delete instead of delete. So a couple things you got to watch out for when you do this. So I'm going to do this from scratch again, and I'll show you how to do that from my warrant. So anyway, let me go back to files in Figma, and hopefully you went through the create a Figma account, and you also did the quick brown fox just for a little practice. Remember, if you don't see your file down here, go to recents if you don't see it down here, but I'm going to make a new one. And what you're going to do is you're going to go to unit 4. I moved this to unit 4. This was going to be in unit 3. But I moved it to unit 4 since I had to re-record it, and it's not a quick video either. But what you can do is click on this link, or you can click on this link and go into the assignment, and you'll see that same link again. So I'm going to go here, and this link you won't see. This is actually the one I turned in, and I'm going to delete it myself because I'm going to do it again. But the link you will see is this one here. This is a shared link, meaning you're going to click on my link, and you're going to click on my file, and then you're going to add it to your Figma drafts. So I'm going to click here. Now, you can be logged into Figma, or you don't have to be. If you're not logged in, it will ask you. So I'll click on this, and I'll make sure it opens in a new tab and it doesn't take over your tab here. And here it is. So I could close this other one, whatever screen you have. So you can close this tab. Now, when it opens here, if you're not logged in, it'll ask you to log in. There'll be somewhere over here where you have to log in. But I'm logged in, so I'm not having any problems. So I just closed my other tab. So I can work in this tab now. Now, what you're going to do when this opens is you're going to go up to here where it has this little arrow and go duplicate to your drafts. That will take my version and put it into yours. So make sure you have an account. So duplicate to your drafts, and then it'll say open down here. And you'll open it up. And this is where it was messing it up on the earlier video, and it was all delayed, and it just had weird things going on, and I didn't want anybody to be confused. So then you're going to go here and change the name. Now, you could double click here and just go right over it, or there's a little arrow you could go down and say rename, but I'm going to double click over it, and where it says last F and copy, and the copy in parentheses, just put your last name, first initial. So I'll just put my name here. I'll put 2. You don't have to put 2. I'm just doing it because I had another one, so I just want to make sure that this is the second one. And I'll hit enter, and there it is. Now it's saved to my draft. So if you ever need to, you need to leave, go somewhere, you could go over here, click in this icon and go back to files, and then go down here. And if you don't see it, you're like, where did it go? Just go to recents, and there it is. See, there's the original one that I kind of clicked on, but here's the one, and it just shows recents because it was open, but it's still view only. So this is the one that you're going to open and work on. So I'll open that one again, the one I named. So I'll double click on that. So here it is, just to show you what's going on over here. There's like this letter frame. They call them frames in Figma. And there's the BK logo large, which it's locked, so you don't mess with it. And if you unlock it, just to point out, I have the opacity turned down to 35, so it's easier to work over top of it. So I'll relock it again. You don't have to mess with it. And at the end, you could turn it off so you don't see it. But we'll keep it on now so we can see over it. And the small one is only here so that we could sample color from it. So we get the full color, because if you sample color from this, it'll get the faded color. So we'll sample the full color here, and we'll work nice and big here. So these are both locked, and you're going to work over top of these. We'll make the bun first, and then we'll make the type, and we'll just do it out of circles, and it doesn't have to be perfect. So if I remember what I did the first time, I'm gonna go over here to where my rectangle tool is and go to my ellipse tool, which is an oval, and I'm just gonna draw kind of a circle over top of this. I'll try to make it as wide. Now if you can't see what's going on here, and this is the problem if you're tracing, you might not want to have a complete fill, and you might want to have a stroke. So you could go down here and click on a stroke and put that on. And I just hit the plus sign down here in stroke. And then fill, I could go in here. Don't necessarily remove it yet. The reason I'm saying don't remove it is when we do our operation, you're going to have to put it back. So just turn down the opacity. Go right in between here. Kind of turn it down a little. That way we can kind of see it a little bit better. And I'll zoom in here. I'll use Command plus on Mac. You could use Control plus. And there are percentages up here you could use too. You could even type in a custom percentage. That was right here. If you wanted to put in 120 and hit enter, you could get a little closer because sometimes the increments are too much. They jump too much. But anyway, now I'm in here. Now remember, click off, click on the edge here. I'm using this tool to do that. And if you want to move it up, you can use your arrow key and kind of move it up. Or you could even just grab it, you know, on the edge here. I could grab it and move it around. And if you want to make it a little thicker, if you find that stroke a little hard to see, you could go over here and go up a little, make it a little thicker. I don't know if that's any thicker. It's not. There, I'll make it 2. Okay, so there's the ellipse. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try to line it up as best I can. You can go on either side here and kind of shorten it. And I could go over here and shorten it a little bit. Now, it's not going to line up perfectly on the downward part of the bun. I'll zoom in even more. You can see here it's not going to line up perfectly. And even up here, it's not lining up perfectly. I'll bring this down ever so slightly. We're going to get it close enough where it's not going to be a perfect Burger King logo. So it, you know, it kind of comes out here a little bit. So that's good enough for what we're doing here. We're going to match it as close as we can. And then what we're going to do is we're going to edit this thing. But before we do, we're going to chop it in half. We don't want to work on a giant circle like this. I'm going to zoom out, and I'm going to go over here and take a rectangle. And I'm going to draw a rectangle starting from the upper left, just kind of dragging and moving it down. Now this one, you can leave it solid, I guess. Don't worry about the color. And I'm just going to move it up here till it gets to the bottom of the edge of the bun, I guess. And I'll do that. And now I have these two shapes. I have rectangle and I have ellipse. And then I have my logo thing here. So I'm going to highlight through both of them. I'll just highlight down. You don't have to go all around them, just right through them. And I'll highlight them. And then I'm going to use an operation right here. And I'm going to go to subtract. And what that should do is take the top one and chop out and just leave you with the top half of the bun thing. So I'm going to use subtract selection. And there it is. So that worked. And then what I'm also going to do over here, it's still kind of in a temporary state where it has the rectangle and ellipse built in. So it's not permanent yet. So what you could do while it's still selected, the subtract thing, you could go over here and choose flatten selection. That'll make it into just one path. And then we're going to edit the anchor points on this. Now to do that, I'll zoom in a little more, edit the anchor points. Now this will be a little more tricky, and I'll go up here to edit object. Now this edits the little anchor points in here, and you'll see what I mean. I'll click, and now you see an anchor point there, an anchor point, and an anchor point here. Now we're going to add one here, and then just kind of angle it or curve it a little, and add one here and one here. And then we're going to delete these, the ones there. So we're going to kind of chop off that end there. And I'll show you what to do. It's a little tricky, so be careful. So to add an anchor point, you're going to go to the pen tool. This thing here, it looks like a pen. And you can see it has a little circle. If you just click on the edge right about there, right where it intersects, I'm just going to click once. It should have a plus sign. And remember, we're in that editing area, so it should say done here. So if it doesn't say that, you have to click this. You have to click that. Now it says done, and you're going over to the pen tool. Got it? And I'm going to click here with that little plus thing. Make sure it says plus. Make sure you're not here. Make sure you're right on the line and it says plus, and click. Now, there's a tricky thing right after you do this you have to watch. I clicked. Now, you see if I move, I have that line coming out. Just hit escape, and that'll kind of deselect that. You won't have a line connecting to it. And then go down here and do the same thing. Now, that red thing's not a line. It's just lining up the other thing. And if it's right below it, that's probably fine. The red line is fine, but you don't want that other line coming out. Those lines are just aligning lines. So I'm just going to click here with the plus sign and add that. And now you see this thing, that blue line you don't want. How do you get rid of that? You hit escape. There we go. Now I'll do the same thing over here, and that red line is just lining it up. So I'll click with the plus, and then You see that blue line? Hit escape. And then come down here, and that could line up right below it, that's fine. And you see the plus sign, then click. Now we added it. See that blue thing again? Hit escape. All right, so we're good. Now we have to delete this one and that one. Now to do that, you're going to go back to this arrow. Go back to this arrow, and we're still in this editing area, so it should still say done. Click on this. Now here's another tricky little thing, but once you know it, then you know it. You're not just going to hit delete, because it'll delete the whole thing. Hold down shift and hit delete. Perfect. And go over here. Click on this one. Hold down shift. Hit delete. Perfect. And all that we're going to do now is drag these little handles in and fix it. Now, if you have any problem with it, you could probably leave it like this, but I'll show you how to do this. I'll zoom in a little bit more, and I'll scroll over here. I'm doing it on my trackpad. You could hold down the space bar. When you're really zoomed in and you need to pan, hold down your space bar. You can move around. Now, I'm going to go back on my arrow, and if you just click here, you'll see like little handles coming out. There's like little, like a handle coming out with an end on it. And I'm going to grab this one, the end of it, the little diamond thing, and I'm just going to pull it in, straight in, as far as I could go, and I could even go right back into the point. And that's all you should have to do. And then go over to the one over here and do the same thing, except the other direction. Click here, and grab on that little end and just drag straight. Don't go down or anything like that, just straight into the point like that. And that should be good enough. Now you could, if you wanted to get perfectly, you could grab this one and try to pull that one in a little. You don't have to. If you leave it like the way it is, I'm fine with that. But if you go on this one and you want to drag this handle in a little, just be very careful, do it very slowly. You can drag that in a little. Don't worry about this not lining up perfect up there. Unless you want to. It's up to you, but leave that alone. Now we're done editing these points. We now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 anchor points. We're done editing. What do you think we hit when we're done? We hit done. And now we're going to copy it. We don't have to do that again. We're just going to kind of copy it down here and put it down here. So let me zoom out a little. And what I'll do is I'll copy it. Now I'm going to name it bun. So you could go right where it says subtract, double click on it, and just call it bun. And you don't have to do top bun or bottom bun. You'll know which one. And I'm going to duplicate it. Now you could hold down your Alt key and grab this and get that double arrow and drag it. You could do that, and I'll just hit delete. Or you could click on this thing and duplicate it. And then we're going to fill it with color. But another way to duplicate it is to go to Edit, Duplicate, Command D. So if you're on Windows, you could use Control D. If you're on Mac, use Command D. Or just choose Duplicate. And it did it. Now, you might not know, but look, now you have two buns over here. And which is which? Well, there's a bottom one and a top one. Let's take the bottom one and just grab it and move it down. Okay, that's the bottom bun. So you don't have to put bottom bun or whatever. Now, we have to flip this around. Now, how do you do that? Well, there is an operation where you could go to, is it Edit or is it Object? It's Object. It's weird. Sometimes it's Edit, Duplicate, but it's Object, Flip Vertical. You could flip vertical, and it'll do that. And if you didn't do that, I'll undo it. Let me just show you another way. If you find that you don't know where to go, you could just grab the top of this and get that arrow and just flip it manually. And you could do it that way. That way you can go here and just grab it and kind of do that. And I'll zoom in a little bit more so you can see what I'm doing. So again, you could flip something like that just by grabbing it. And I'll lay it up here. And now this isn't perfect in terms of the bun path. You know what I mean? But I don't want you to go in here and mess with it and start pulling in points. I mean, if you wanted to, you could go up here and you could do that thing where you maybe add a point here, hold down escape, you add a point here, line it up, click, hold down escape, and then take your arrow, and if you'd want to kind of pull it out a little, you could try that a little bit. It may not be perfect, and go to this one and pull it out, but you don't have to do this part, not really, because it would need more editing with these little anchor points and with these handles. I'd have to be turning them and do all kinds of stuff like that. And if you don't feel comfortable doing that, grabbing these handles and turning them, then don't bother. Then just leave it the way it was. Just be done with it. So anyway, I'll do that You could do as much or as little as you want. Now, the problem with these two buns is they have a stroke on them and they have a semi-transparent color. So let's fix that. Let's select this one and get rid of the stroke. I'll hit the minus sign. Okay, now it's still there. Keep in mind it's still there. And let's change the fill. Let's click on here, this fill thing, and take this thing. Now, I got to scroll over. I'm going to take this eyedropper and select this. And make sure that this goes up to 100%. And now this happened last time. I'm glad it happened. Not that I'm glad I'm recording the new video, but something weird happened last time. Now I got the right color. You see it's 100%, it's that orange color. But something else happened. Let me close this. This layer went to pass through 20%. I don't know why, but I don't know why that happened. If I go here, does it do that? No, it's weird. Oh, it does say pass through 20%. I'm not sure why it's on there. Why it says pass through, but it does. I'm not sure at what point it did that, but take it off pass through. Go here and just make it normal and then change this. You could double click in here and put it at 100 and hit enter. And then do the same thing here. Take it off from being pass through, make it normal. And then if you go next to here, you could slide it and try to scroll up to 100, or you could just double click in here and do 100. And unfortunately, I did that I did that, but I didn't change the color yet. So I got to change the color here. Fill, eyedropper, orange color, X out of here. And then stroke, you just hit the minus sign. And there we go. Now we have the buns. So we're good with the buns. And what we're going to do next is the type, the Burger King type. And we're going to use a font called Nunito. That's one of the Google fonts that we have available here, and it's not as bold as it is here, so we're going to actually put a stroke on it too. But we now have bun. I mean, you could go here and call it top bun if you wanted to. Well, at least you'll know. And double click here and call this one bottom bun. Now make sure it's the right one, because you could flip them around. This just shows where they are in the layers. It doesn't mean one's on the top and one on the bottom. It just means if they were on top of each other, the top bun would be on top of the bottom bun. But those are the buns. So first part, we got the buns done, and we did some vector artwork. So we worked with vector tools. We did a Boolean operation where we did a subtract. We added some anchor points. We deleted some anchor points. We used some little modifiers where you have to hit escape and you have to hold shift delete. And we even drug out little handles on them to kind of modify the curves a little bit. So those are the buns. So that's vector artwork. And that's used in a lot of logo creation. And then we're going to use some text here and finish off the Burger King logo in part 2. So come back to part 2.